Welcome to the Dependency Podcast. I'm your host, Frank, also known as Sir Mason. 2020 has been a crazy year for me. I joined the community in April and started out of nowhere with the Dependency Podcast in July. Since I started, I wanted to interview one person, and that is the person that got me into NES Tetris. I am talking about aGameScout. We talked 2 days after the CTWC Silver Bracket, and we talked about his YouTube channel, CTWC, and much more. This is our conversation. Hey, GameScout, welcome to the Dependency Podcast, and thank you for doing this.
Oh my gosh, this is exciting. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, first question is always the same question to everyone who's new on the podcast, and that is, how did you get into NES Tetris?
I got into it when I was recommended this YouTube video called Confessions of a Tetris Addict back in around 2015, which is not about NES Tetris. But I remember watching that video and it not immediately catching my attention. So I clicked on this other video that was recommended called What It's Like to Be a Tetris Master, which of course was BuzzFeed's documentary about Eli Markstrom in 2014. I thought that was super cool. So then I found the Classic Tetris YouTube channel, which had like very few views at the time because they had just put up their 2015 odds, which was the very first year they did it. So I watched those, thought it was super cool, subscribed, watched YouTube videos when they put them up the next year. Then I watched it live on Twitch the year after, and then in 2018, I was all in.
And what was it that the BuzzFeed video got your attention?
I think the BuzzFeed video did a really great job highlighting Eli on a personal level. They made him somebody really likable, somebody to root for. He flies in the face of a lot of what people might stereotype somebody as a competitive Tetris player as. And he also has a really great line in there. That's also something that Thora Ackerlund says in the Ecstasy of Order documentary. So I think it's cool that Eli got it in there for the BuzzFeed video as well, where he says he compares Tetris to life, where life throws a lot of random stuff at you. It deals you a random hand so much of the time. And life is about making the best of what it gives you and putting all those pieces together. So, and just like, Tetris, your life eventually ends, the Tetris game eventually ends, but it's about what you do with it along the way. So I think that's always been a cool analogy of comparing Tetris to life.
And how did you get involved into the community?
I think it was after I watched the 2016 VODs when I looked up Ecstasy of Order. And I watched the film, and then I started Googling some of the players. I forget where it was linked. Maybe it was in the description of one of the CTWC videos, but I found Harry's Twitch channel.
Yeah.
And when and he was live at the exact time I happened to be searching for it or going to his Twitch page. And so I was immediately in the chat saying hello, and he was responding back. And I was like, oh, wow, I just watched a movie of this guy, and now I'm talking with him. That's so cool. And it was kind of a slow process over that following year. I believe, it was 2017 when I sort of learned how NES Tetris works by watching Harry's Twitch page for a couple years. That was the year he was going for 1.2 million, the very first 1.2 million score, which now, I think about 50 people, I don't even know the number. It may be even way more than 50 have gotten it.
Yeah.
Or a little bit less. I don't know that stat. But yeah, that was really cool. And then I started getting involved in Jonas's stream the next year, and then Joseph's stream. It was really fun because I started realizing that there's a lot of other people who have Twitch pages as well. When the CTMs started happening. And back then I didn't really know about the Tetris forums, where I think Hard Drop had a forum, and that some of the CTWC veterans, that's how they met and congregated on the internet. But I didn't really know too much about those. And it wasn't all the modern Discord servers weren't set up yet. So the Twitch chats were kind of where people would hang out, or kind of like the new crowd of fans were I would hop into whoever's live and we would all be talking about the game and learning the stuff. All these discussions that normally happen on Discord now, where there's like a designated place for them, used to just happen randomly in spurts on Twitch on whoever happened to be live.
Did these live streams attend multiple people? Like the viewers Jonas gets today or Joseph gets today?
No. So like one of the funnest memories I have is the early days of Joseph's streams before anybody really knew who he was. I found his stream when I came across his max out video on YouTube. Back when he was completely unknown. He had just set the world record for youngest max out. And I was like, oh my gosh. This was back when like a max out was still pretty rare.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, this guy's going to be like a top competitor if he gets out to the CTWC. And so I started hanging out on his Twitch page, and there were only like 10 viewers. And it was a really cool grind to see him go from his early days when he was playing on an LCD, when he was still struggling to even get a max out on any particular day, to eventually like battling Corion that entire summer in the race to be the first to get level 31. And then seeing his progression, basically all culminating in him winning in 2018.
You saw the community grow from 2017 to 2018 to 2019.
Yeah.
How much is the difference between nowadays and between just before Joseph won the World Championship?
I think the huge difference is there's now the community is so much more organized than it used to be. Yeah. There's so many more events going on. I remember back when the Boom Tetris for Jeff, the Jonas versus Jeff finals, when that all took off on YouTube, there's a huge amount of viewership for the YouTube videos, but it was kind of all like disorganized. It was casual fans. Like nobody quite knew all the intricacies of the game or what was going on.
Yeah.
People didn't really know where to talk about it with other people live, and the CTMs hadn't quite taken off yet, or I think they were just starting. So nowadays, like there's so many opportunities for people to get involved in events, which is crazy. Like as soon as the CTM came out, that was back when Friday Witch originally was tired of waiting an entire year to watch competitive Tetris, because it only happened once a year, and she was like, I want to see it every month. And now that's crazy to think about, because not only can you get into a CTM where they will accept anybody, it's not like the CTWC where you have to qualify above a certain benchmark to be able to play at all.
True. Yeah.
You can join Classic Tetris League, where you'll get a bazillion guaranteed matches if you're able to play them all. Or you can enter Classic Tetris Gauntlet, or if you're in the Palestine, you can enter in Classic Tetris PAL, or any of, oh my gosh, all of these.
You can watch Classic Tetris matches every day, almost literally late UTC, early UTC hours. Then the most Classic Tetris matches will happen. Do you think the community was ready for the impulse that they got?
I think so. I think the fear with any sort of huge sudden growth with the community is that it will be bombarded or invaded by people that are sort of different from the core values of the original community. I think what attracts a lot of people to the Tetris community is the sort of wholesome vibes at the core, where I think you get that from it being sort of a single player game combined, where everybody can kind of root for each other in isolation. There's no like direct attacks on people. And for the most part, the people who have gotten the most involved in the community they're all super great people. And I'm super glad to know everybody. Like if 50% of the community was toxic, I wouldn't want to spend all this time hanging out with everybody all day online.
True.
Doesn't mean there's, not, a couple people here and there inevitably who cause problems, but by and large, for the most part, I mean, I've been involved in a couple different online communities over the years, and in the Tetris community is pretty darn great for what it's able to accomplish.
And makes that the difference between the Tetris community and every other community?
Yeah, I don't want to maybe put the Tetris community too much on a pedestal above other communities I don't know too much about. I can just speak that I've had a great experience within the Tetris community. I think a lot of the sort of recipes for community disasters are not there in the Tetris community because at the core, a lot of the people who've emerged as leaders have been really great, non-toxic people. Like Ray, Vince, and Adam, they work their hearts out every year to make CTWC happen. Van Dweller does a great job working every month to make CTM happen, kind of organizing everything. If you had people who were like not nice or not able to manage stuff, it just wouldn't work because it works from the top bottom. So
Yeah, what's the best thing about the community?
best thing about the community, like a lot of online communities in general, is the ability to bring people together. I mean, it's always really nice to be able to have a shared common interest in somebody, and something like Tetris in the grand scheme of society is something that a ton of people know about, but perhaps not that many people are like super into, especially classic Tetris. And I remember like going to the CTWC for the first time and being in a crowd of people who all care about this just as much as I do. That's really, really cool because that's something I hadn't experienced in any other context. Tetris also appeals to like certain personality types. And so I think that also provides some commonalities. Like there's a lot of overlap in the interests of Tetris players as well. Like there's a ton of cubers. Like I'm not a cuber, but a ton of cubers are also top Tetris players. And that's something they've also been able to discuss. Like a lot of people who are really into math, science, programming. They're able to do all these things, create all these ROM hacks. I've really enjoyed getting to know people who are in the media side of things in the classic Tetris community. Sharky, Anthony, Eric, MJ Production. Like there's a lot of overlapping awesome things that happen.
And people around you, so what was their reaction when you told them that you were going to Portland, fly 3,000 miles from Pennsylvania to go to a classic Tetris World Championship?
My roommates had gotten the idea based on me having a CRT in the living room and practicing for a couple months. So at first, they kind of had the same reaction I did, and I think most people do, which is like, what Tetris tournaments are a thing? And then they were like, wait, like people actually do this? They can earn money from it. That's cool. That's fun. So yeah, I mean, the couple people that I told in real life that kind of really knew me and knew what I had been practicing over that whole year, they totally got it. Yeah, I haven't had like somebody directly say to me like, what the heck? Why are you spending time on this?
I don't think they will in real life. If they do, they will comment it on a YouTube video of yours.
Yes, yeah, the YouTube comments.
We will return to the conversation with the aGameScout in a minute. But first, if you like the Peace Dependency Podcast, help us grow. Please share the podcast with every classic Tetris fan. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Peace Dependency. You can like our Facebook page, Peace Dependency Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube page where we'll have all the podcasts uploaded at full length. Also, you can listen to the Peace Dependency Podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. Join the Kingsman Tetris Friendly's Discord server. Besides the fact that it's the place to discuss anything Peace Dependency Podcast, you can also participate in some lovely friendlies or put your ELO on the line in the various ELO battles. Last but not least, if you have a suggestion we need to have on the next Peace Dependency Podcast, let us know through our socials, the Discord channel, or send us an email to peacedependencypodcast@gmail.com. Now, let's go back to the conversation with the aGameScout, where we'll be talking about the aGameScout, the YouTube channel. You are the biggest NES Tetris content creator on YouTube right now.
My goodness.
With your channel aGameScout, you have over 20,000 subscribers. Why did you start aGameScout?
Okay, so I've been making YouTube videos for a long time. Probably most people who follow my channel, GameScout, know I have another channel, a Song Scout, which I started back in 2010. And I experimented with a ton of different types of YouTube content related to music and stuff, mainly inspired by a lot of YouTubers I used to watch back when I was young. And I always tried to find something that worked. Eventually, I started doing a lot of just straight piano covers in a style that I had developed.
Yeah.
But piano covers in and of themselves, I also enjoy doing like narrative and explanation stuff. So I wanted to branch out my channel to do more. I had actually had this idea to have a series on my channel, a Song Scout, which I wouldn't really have done very much with music. It was supposed to be like this show where I have videos that explain some sort of interesting topic in 5 minutes.
Yeah. What kind of topics did you want to cover?
Yeah, so like the first two topics I was going to cover were like the pipe organ and Tetris, which is like completely unrelated things. But actually, so one of the things that really motivated me to make Tetris videos was because nobody else was doing it. One of the tough things about trying to like be inspired and be driven to make YouTube content is when somebody else makes like the exact same video as you, and then it sort of exists, and you're like, oh, well, now that doesn't need. Now I don't need to make it because somebody else has already made it, and that's where the views are going to go, and it's going to look like I'm just copying them if I do it. And that's exactly what happened to me actually eventually with the pipe organ video. Is that I had this idea for it, I filmed a bunch of stuff, and I got stuck in development hell when I was editing it, and then Rob Scallon, who, funnily enough, is also a huge classic Tetris fan now.
Yeah.
But I used to follow him way before then. He came out with I think like 3 videos at this point, all about the pipe organ.
I saw them. Yeah.
Really explaining it, and I was like, okay, well, he's already covered that topic. If I cover it now, it'll basically be like the same thing, except I'm not as big of a channel. It's not gonna take off. So I was like, all right. But then Tetris, it's so far removed from everything else I had done on my other channel.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have performed well if I put it on that channel. So I was like, what if I just put it on a different channel, a Tetris channel? Even though I had a lot of subscribers on a Song Scout, just because you have subscribers doesn't actually really guarantee you a whole lot of views. It can actually really hurt your video a lot if you upload it to a channel where it doesn't fit, because YouTube gives videos views basically nowadays by putting it on recommended feeds. Like it's pretty standard for most YouTube channels to get like 80% of their views from just YouTube recommending it. And how does YouTube decide how to recommend video to somebody? Is based on primarily the click-through rate on the title and thumbnail and the watch time, measuring how long somebody actually was interested in it. So the ideal for a YouTube video to take off is you have an initial burst of really great analytics from the core audience, which would ideally be your YouTube subscribers. And then YouTube takes that info. If it does really great with your subscribers, then it blows up. But the problem is if I upload a Tetris video to a Song Scout where people are just subscribed to me for piano or music stuff, the click-through rate and the audience retention is going to be terrible. So it's going to give that video a bunch of bad stats. So I figured my best chance was to actually put it on a channel with 0 subscribers. And the only place I ended up posting it initially was on the Tetris subreddit. And a couple of people in the community found out about it through that. And I think that gave it some really good analytics. And then eventually it got passed on to the folks at the CTWC who posted on their Facebook page, who then gave it, with that initial share on the Facebook page of people who are interested in the topic, some great stats. I think that's what led it to really take off. I was motivated to make it because nobody had made a video like that before. And I thought I could do it well. And also I thought it would be helpful to people because so many people were watching Boom Tetris for Jeff. They weren't really quite sure what the transition was, why you were going for Tetrises, all the stuff about DAS. I had learned that painstakingly by watching a year's worth of Twitch live streams. So I was like, all right, I might as well use this knowledge to try and make something informative.
Was it supposed to be a one-off video for Classic Tetris?
So when I initially was having the idea of having this like random topics explained in 5 minutes series on my channel initially back in 2017, it was supposed to be a one-off.
That video wasn't 5 minutes.
No, it was not. And the pipe organ video I worked on wasn't 5 minutes either. I quickly realized that 5 minutes is not generally how I can constrain myself when I write a script. But by the time that I ended up working on the Tetris video and completing it for 2018, that was when I had also started playing. And I was back when the community was still small, when a score of 500,000 was considered like, oh, that's really, really good. Or that puts you in like the upper tier. So I had this idea of I wanted to try going out, and I thought it would make a really interesting video to take it to the next level. Of basically not only explaining what Classic Tetris is, but also at the very end reveal, hey, I've actually been practicing this my own, and I'm going to go see if one person can in 1 year end up qualifying for the World Championships in something. Unfortunately, I wasn't good enough to get in, but I really, really lucked out in that the first year I went was 2018 when Joseph won, because I did end up in the end getting to make a video about somebody going there in their first year and not only qualifying, but winning the whole thing.
Your YouTube description or aGameScout is videos about my gaming interests, right now primarily Tetris. So we covered the original plan for aGameScout, but is it realistic to see anything other than classic Tetris content on your channel?
So that's another interesting one because, originally when I was thinking of aGameScout, I was like, okay, there's probably going to be like, I don't know, 6 or 7 videos I can make about Tetris if I really stretch it. Like, I'll have the big explain video, then maybe I'll make a video about 2018 when I go, and maybe I can make one each year, and then maybe I can make a video about DAS versus Hypertap, and maybe 1 or 2 other topics, and that'll be it. And so I'll have to move on to other games to talk about. One of the really cool things that's happened as the community has just grown exponentially after the Joseph year is that I've never run out of video ideas. Like I just literally can't make the videos fast enough. I have a Google Doc where I made of just like video ideas, and when I initially just sat down to type out them all, I had over 20, and I've made maybe 5 or 6 of those so far. Then also some of the other new NES Tetris YouTubers have made some of the videos that I had ideas for as well. And the thing is, like, at the beginning, I was really worried that somebody else would make the videos that I had ideas for, and then I was like, oh well, then there's no point of me making them if I was like in the middle of it or something. But that was also back when I thought there were only like 6 or 7 videos that one could make about classic Tetris. One of the really, I've really come to be a huge fan of every other NES Tetris YouTuber making content. Like Eric's videos that he done about world record progression for NES Tetris, world record progression for no next box. Guide to how to participate in CTWC. He did such a great job on those. I think he did a better job than I would have on those particular topics. And so I don't have this like worry in the back of my mind at the beginning where I was like, oh my gosh, I need to make all these topics real quick before somebody else does them. I'm now like, well, there's so much to make videos about. I can't even finish the ones. I mean, these other people are doing such a great job. I want to watch what they would do with these ideas. I got very lucky with the first video in that I managed to do a CTWC explain video before somebody else had the idea and secretly did it and released it a week before me, which is like a lot of YouTubers' worst fears when they're making a big video.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the thing where it's like on YouTube, you do get so many bonus points for your video or your channel taking off when you're the first to do it. Then the joy of that is being able to shout out people and, you know, give an audience, because that's what I felt like some of the people in the community did for me back when my channel was still starting out. Like I had 1 or 2 hits, but then when I uploaded more videos, I didn't quite have that many subscribers yet. And when people like Adam Cornelius would post some of my videos on Facebook page, the Classic Tetris community tab, or Joseph Saley would post some of my videos in his community tab, it would really give that boost. And now I'm sort of at the point where I have enough subscribers where it's nice that like I don't really have to promote content anywhere.
But you can promote other channels.
Yes. So that's what I love to do. Like I always try, like basically every single video now I'm shouting out something in the end that deserves attention.
Yeah.
Or like I love the community tab on YouTube so much because it gives the ability to just like make a post that'll get out to a lot of people, and I don't have to make a video to get that in people's subscription feeds.
Is that also a reason why you keep close contacts with the other Nestris content creators to make sure that no one is doing the same thing at the same time?
Yeah, I did reach out to some of the other people also making NES Tetris YouTube videos, just to kind of share what my list of what I was working on, just because I felt like there were some big topics that we might be working on at the same time. And obviously I wouldn't want both of us to be making the same video twice, and then one of us releases it first and the other person's like, oh, well, darn.
Yeah.
The really nice thing is that when I've discussed that with other people, there really hasn't been the sense of like, I guess, fighting for topics. Like I've never, I was worried maybe I would feel like that, like somebody else wanted to do a topic I really wanted to do, and I'd be like, oh gosh darn it, but I want to do this one. I found like I haven't felt like that at all. Like I had always thought, oh, I'll make a DAS versus hyper tapping video someday. Then Eric mentioned that's a video that he really wanted to do. And I was like, you know what? I want to see Eric make this video because he's like a super, he's one of the fastest hyper tappers in the world. He does such a great job with his videos. And I have all these other videos that I'm trying to do, trying to do the 2019 recap. Sure, go for it. Like I'm not going to put in a stake and say, oh, I want to do that instead. The aGameScout channel, yeah, originally I thought I was going to have to do other topics other than Tetris. And then I thought I was going to have to race to try and do Tetris topics before they became irrelevant, or they had just already been made. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, there's enough Tetris content to sustain many YouTube channels and also many different formats. Like I don't think like hour-long interviews would really meld with the style of my YouTube channel or as much, or what people come to expect. But I love the long form interviews that are in the Dependency Podcast. Like it's a totally different vibe. Like the expectation is not like you have to have like some big, exciting, relevant thing to pop up on the screen every 2 minutes or your audience retention is going down. It's like the vibe is
very laid back.
Yeah, you're sitting down, you're getting to really know somebody.
You have different content on your channel. You have explain videos, you have fun, non-serious content like you did with Sharky, reacting to college humor, Tetris God video. You have CTM recaps, CTWC recaps. But also, I like some videos of yours to be as a short documentary, like the 19.5 video or the No Row explain video. Why did you choose to do this kind of videos?
With the 19.5 video, that was when there were several times in the aGameScout channel history where I was like, I'm going to do a video every week because that's what's always recommended by the conventional YouTube wisdom is have a schedule, get videos out quick, get a lot of them up quick. And it's very funny in that, like the original series idea I had for a Song Scout of 5-minute explainers on random topics, initially that's what I was thinking GameScout would have after the 2018 recap, was just 5-minute videos every week, really quickly explaining something. And the first video idea I had was I was going to do 19.5. That was supposed to come out the week after I got back from CTWC. And right after I got back, I was like, oh my gosh, I just met Mark. I should have tried to set up an interview in person with him. I just met this guy halfway across the world about the video idea I want to talk about. That would have been so cool.
You didn't think about it.
But I didn't think about it when I met him and all throughout the weekend. So I was like, shoot, well, what if I just do the next best thing and just write him up and see if I can, do some sort of like Discord interview.
Yeah. It
turned out that we weren't able to record the interview that week because Mark was actually sick the week after coming back from CTWC. And it was also in a time where I was trying to move. So it ended up being like the worst possible time. It was an unexpected move. So I was suddenly super busy in real life. Mark needed to wait. So that kind of immediately shot the goal of making a video every week down. And I was just like, oh, well.
There goes that plan.
Yeah. So I eventually recorded the interview with Mark like a week later. And then I started working on the script and working on everything. And then Mark tells me, oh, wait, there's this other guy, Jake, who's now made, who's now gotten 19.5. And then I was like, oh, shoot. All right, now I got to include Jake in this video. Because when I was talking to other people in the community, because they knew I was making this video, they're like, Jake's gotten it multiple times. You got to interview Jake too. And for a long time, I wasn't quite sure how to build the narrative. And so I ended up interviewing Jake, and I was sitting on all this footage, and it was also like this complicated thing of like video priorities. There were some videos I was trying to do for a Song Scout that were like super like had super hard deadlines. There was one I was trying to do for this video contest for Davey504, the space YouTuber. There was one I was trying to do for Pi Day. Then I was trying to get this gear video up for CTWC. I felt like that was like the most pressing topic. But then it just ended up taking me forever to get this 19.5 video done. And I felt really bad about how long it took. When I was listening to Mark on the earlier episode of your podcast where he's like, oh, well, I thought it was just canceled. I was like, shoot, gosh darn it. Because when I shoot something with somebody, like something they gave to me, like that's a super nice gift. And I've never canceled any video where I filmed something with somebody for the community. It may take forever to come out, but I'm always going to finish it.
Did you cancel other videos about Classic Tetris?
Yeah, there was a video that I filmed. It was like my experience playing in the April 2020 CTM. It was the first time I had participated in the CTM in like 9 months. I thought, hey, it would be cool to like document my process. The problem was I wasn't really quite sure how to do it. And I was trying to film it all as this documentary, but it was like me bumbling about the process of like registering and doing the qualifying. Like I did some stuff wrong. And then I was looking at the footage and I was just like, oh, this is all a mess. This is not a very good tutorial. And I think a while later I realized, you know what, I could have just dubbed this whole part and not tried to have this aura of it being a documentary, and just tried to just ditched all the voiceover I did. Because I was talking throughout all of it. So it was like I was supposed to be talking, but when I was editing it did not come out as a great script. So I probably should have just like used angles where I'm facing away and then just dubbed over it and just basically redone my whole vision for the video. But basically by the time I was doing that, I was already busy on all these other videos. The CTM recaps, which again were another thing that I thought was only going to be 5 minutes and be super quick to make, ended up becoming big things. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to interview the people who made the finals and do all these extra stats. That's the story of my channel. I have these like ideas for super simple videos, and they just balloon and get super big.
And they get great views. So you like the CTM Masters Recap. The first one got great views. So people were expecting to do a new one the next month.
The interesting thing with the first CTM recap is that one did proportionally for the other videos on my channel, it got like almost no views. And I think it was because my initial thumbnail wasn't in the style of what I had previously made. I think people weren't quite sure it was a video made by me. And I also thought like, oh, maybe this video needs something more. It was also a video where Joseph wasn't in it. So I mean, the next video, I got very fortunate that not only did I have this idea of like, oh, maybe I want to know what the finalists' thoughts were when they were playing these crazy games when Joseph got those 2 world records. And so when I reached out to Joseph and I reached out to Eric, they were both willing to do an interview. I was like, oh my gosh, sweet. But then also like the combination of like Joseph Saley and world record. I think specifically world record appeals to a lot of people. Like you put world record in the title. If you can deliver on that title, then your YouTube video is golden in the algorithm.
Yeah. Did people hesitate to come on your CTM recap videos?
Let's see. The only person that didn't come on was GarbageEgg, but that was because I don't think he even saw the Discord messages or Twitch messages I sent him. I sent him a bunch, and waited like 2 weeks to see if he would respond. Then, funnily enough, just yesterday, I got in contact with him for the very first time. He was streaming yesterday, and I was like, "Hey, did you ever see my messages?" And he was like, "Oh, yep, there they are. Just saw them. Did you end up making the video?" I was like, "Oh yeah, a couple months ago."
Great, thanks for watching my my channel.
But that's okay, because I think that totally vibed with the sort of spirit of GarbageEgg. Is I think some people weren't quite sure if he was an alt, just because it's pretty strange for somebody to come in and be such an expert, get to the finals, and then disappear and never be seen again. And there have been alts in the past in the community. People have gone up to shenanigans for fun. But another person in the community has told me on his word that no, GarbageEgg is actually this guy who's primarily into Tetrio or some other form of Tetris, and he just hardly ever comes into the NES Tetris scene.
What's the process of making a CTM recap video? Normally you release a video a week before the newest CTM Masters, I believe.
Yeah, that's how it's been turning out lately. Then like the October one, it's just super late because I got bogged down in trying to finish the CTWC 2019 video along with all these sponsored videos for Enhance, which came out of nowhere in October. I was not expecting that because it was this massive secret. But yeah, okay. So the process of making a CTM recap. So I mean, it starts with like watching the entire thing live because that just kind of helps. And all throughout, I'm like taking notes on like what would make a good match. I mean, it's typically one where something like very interesting or unique happens, or there's an exciting close finish. It's really funny in that it's like changed in certain individual games how I root for the game to end. Where like there will be like this classic game in the making, and then both players will be just storming through, and then one of them will top out on level 24, and I'm like, no, that was such a great game. But now it doesn't have a very exciting finish.
And then you have the moment you do a highlight each round, and then sometimes you do a notable moment that isn't the highlight of the round. But how do you write the script around it?
Yeah, so having a highlight for each round is kind of the easiest way to contain it. Just because like if I was like, all right, if I'm gonna write about every single notable thing, that could be like 10 or 12 things. So I have to like rein it in and not have each CTM recap get out of hand. And eventually producing it. So it's about picking out those moments. I try to find like where it gets interesting at the end of the game. So it's usually like a minute and a half before it ends, like level 26 to level 28 or so. And then I will do all the stats for it. So I'll go in and I'll run it through. I'll type in every time the score changes and run it through Zeal's calculator he made for me,
Yeah.
and then type it in, which is a tedious process. I wish I was an expert programmer and just figured out how to automate that. But for now, with the limited amount of footage, it doesn't take too long. It just takes like 2.5 hours to do it for a couple minutes of footage. But that actually really helps me in writing the script because it
Yeah.
gives extra context. In the same way, like on Chris Higgins' interview for the last Peace Dependency podcast, where he was saying when he got a game back from Trey, that Trey sent him in 2014 when he ran it through Trey Vision and had extra stats.
Yeah.
So he got robbed in his game versus Jonas with the long bars, which wouldn't be as obvious if you didn't have the stats there. I also find when I go through and I'm like typing in the like score difference, which isn't on the screen and you don't quite see it as viscerally in your head when you have to calculate it, or the Tetris difference, which I think is like, if there's anything really unique in the CTM recaps, it's that Tetris difference stat, which I always thought was like, I thought that would be a cool stat because I always hear the announcers doing the math in their heads during events of like, oh, they think this is like 2 Tetrises or Tetris and a half or so. And I was like, it's a really simple calculation. I would love to see that stat on the screen.
Yeah.
And so that kind of helps put it into perspective with me of like, oh, I'm not just seeing like a 200,000 point lead here at the end. That's like 5 Tetrises or 6 Tetrises, or I can see Alan or Jake or whoever's playing chipping away at the Tetrises one by one. It's now at 4 and now it's at 3 and now it's at 2. Like I can see that lead going down by the Tetris, which I find really cool, and that helps me like writing the script, and what I eventually read, because I do script it out because I'm talking way too fast for any commentator to be able to say all that stuff live or have all that analysis in a live game. Commentating is really tough. That's what I learned when I started doing live broadcasts myself and restreaming people. So all of the respect to every single commentator who manages to catch stuff live. I have to script everything out, otherwise I wouldn't catch 10% of what I talk about.
Have you tried to do it in a quote unquote lifestyle?
I think that the hard thing for me is that if I were to do it in a live style, I stumble so much when I'm making videos, which is weird to say because I don't think, like, somehow I've gotten through this podcast, I think, without stumbling too much. But when I'm filming videos, for some reason, I have to say like every single sentence like 10 times. It's so annoying. I think my overall record, I don't think I have to say it 10 times every single time, but it's usually like 2 or 3 times. And then my record was 25 times for a single line. I went back and counted because it was just ridiculous.
Jeez.
Some sort of brain block in my head where I could not say this line. It was like a tongue twister in my mind. But yeah, I always felt like if I tried to like recap it super fast live, it's just not a skill set I have. I would just stumble all over the place and have to constantly rewind and then get it together bit by bit.
Is it that you stumbled because it is a bit uncomfortable to talk to a camera?
I think it's the perfectionist in me, like that doesn't want to have any errors or stumbles or filler words or stuff like that.
You've done a 4-video series about the newest Tetris games, Tetris Effect Connected. It was a project that was a sponsorship for you. How did they approach you and how did they pitch the project to you?
I don't know how much I can say about it. They kept this a mega secret until it came out. The only people who knew about it in the entire community were Adam, Trey, Vince, and GreenTea.
Yeah.
That was it. I was initially brought on board to potentially do a role in the CTWC live commentary. That role ended up going away just for simplicity's sake because they had so many moving parts. They were originally going to have me do the post game interviews, but then they just switched it to the people already doing the broadcast, doing the post game interviews, which I think makes sense. But that was when Adam told me, "Hey, there's this like thing going on that we're doing with Enhance. They're interested in having you make some videos about this upcoming Tetris Effect game." And I was like, "Awesome," because I had just gotten an email the previous month from Raid Shadow Legends, which is very infamous in the YouTube in the YouTube community in general for paying a crap ton of money. So they get a lot of people to accept their sponsorships. At least they pay a crap ton of money to people who get like hundreds of thousands of views. I don't know how much they would have offered me. But they also like force you to read this like really corny script about how you play the game and you like all the stuff you can do in the game and how you can join their clan and stuff like that. Which obviously I don't care about that game. I'm not going to be playing it. And most YouTubers don't either. And it's become a big meme because I don't think it's that great of a game. Like it's okay at best. I don't know too much about it. I just know everybody hates it because and I did not want my first sponsored video on my channel to be something that it's obviously like blatant lies, because like a huge part of a channel is your integrity. Like if I'm doing a sponsorship, I want people to be like, okay, I actually believe in the product. I'm not just doing it for the money. And so if I was going to do a first sponsorship, I was like, Raid Shadow Legends, I really don't want to. And then that was right around the time when Adam told me about the Enhance thing. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm on board because this is exactly the sort of thing I would want to make a video about if I weren't sponsored. And to Enhance's credit, they were super, like, unlike Shadow Legends, which has you read an exact script and that you cannot deviate from. Enhance said basically, we want you to make videos about these different modes exactly how you make a GameScout video. They really didn't give me an outline at all.
Was that difficult to do?
No, actually. I mean, it was hard in that I had to play the game and like learn about the different modes and stuff. But it was very nice that basically they said just cover it how you make a video. If I was like, okay, this is how I would make the video, basically. If I were going to do it for GameScout. And they had very minimal feedback in the end.
How was it working with GreenTea and with Kirby?
Oh my gosh. Kirby, it was funny because it was one of those things where like I didn't realize how big of a deal she was until I started researching that video. Because she hangs out on the Discord servers, but I don't know much about the modern guideline community scene just because I haven't been involved with it. So initially when I was doing the no rotation video, Kirby was the one who actually like pitched the video to me. She was like, oh, all these people are doing the world records. You could do this world record progression. And she actually gave me a timeline of everybody, which really helped me get the ball rolling, which was super awesome of her. And then I did an interview about with it for her because she had this really cool thing she was working on about the proof of you can get an infinite sequence and guideline if you get the pieces in the 7-bag the right way. So like, oh, cool. I filmed that. And then when I was researching the zone battle mode, I was looking into, all right, I gotta know more about the zone. I gotta know more about Perfectress and Ultimatris and Impossibilitrices. And then I saw that 21 lines is the Curbtress. That all the videos of like the world records were from Kirby's channel. Like, wait, what? The video I just filmed with her, I just filmed the video with this person last month, and they're like the namesake of this thing in the game.
You didn't know?
I did not know. Part of the original game was named after her. So it was a really cool thing to be able to not only have her be in the video, but able to get that thing that was her namesake at the end of the video.
And working with GreenTea?
GreenTea is you never know it from his like personality. in the videos or in the CTWC, but he's a very reserved, introverted person off camera,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily his comfort zone to be on camera. Like I believe that when he came to CTWC 2018, that was the first time anybody had seen him at
Yeah.
all. So initially, when I had the idea, when I was talking to Mark, I was saying, oh, GreenTea is the guy that would make sense to put in these videos, because then it's not like company enhanced where it seems like, oh, maybe there's like this corporation that's just trying to come into the classic Tetris scene. It's like, no, these guys like really get it. They've been to the CTWCs and they hired literally one of the biggest faces to be a part of this. And Mark told me, oh, that's a great idea, but I don't know if GreenTea would talk on camera. And one thing I didn't realize is when I went to like watch other like press events that he's done, he's very silent. He doesn't usually say very much.
Yeah.
To my surprise, when I reached out to GreenTea, he agreed to it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's really nice. And I think that's one of the first major interviews that GreenTea has done where he's like talked a lot in it. And he does such a great job with talking. Like, again, everybody in the community loves him.
My wife loves him. It's true.
I'm super glad he agreed to do it. Even though I think I think that's a case for maybe a lot of people, because there's been some other people I've reached out to interviews for aGameScout videos where it's been their like first time being interviewed on a main stage or something big, and they've been a little hesitant to be on camera or something. I think like everybody enjoyed interviewing. Like they all come across really great on camera. I love hearing what they have to say. I love getting to know them better. GreenTea, again, he's so nice. He was really great to work with.
How did you prepare the interviews? What kind of sources did you use? Like, could you go back to Enhance to ask questions about the game, or did you do some research, background research on GreenTea or on Kirby to make sure you have the right interview and the right footage to show within your video?
Yes. So I did try to do as much as I could. I went back and I had remembered seeing some tweets from GreenTea about his experience with Enhance and Master Mode. So I went back and looked at the tweets he had made during that month of the CTWC. I had looked through Kirby's channel to try and figure out like what milestones she had reached. But a lot of stuff I found out for the first time in interviews. Like Kirby's interview, we filmed for like 20 minutes. And of course, only a few minutes appear in the final video. A lot of those 20 minutes is me talking through things and understanding the topic as she explains it to me, and me realizing it for the first time. But yes, also I was able to talk to Mark McDonald, one of the producers of the game, and he was answering questions for me. Mark is like crazily involved with everything. I've realized, like, he was hopping in a whole bunch of people's Twitch streams the day the game was launched. He's active in their Discord server, like online. He's super accessible and willing to listen to anybody who loves the game or has feedback.
Yeah.
He was very willing to listen to me, which was really cool.
Hey, shifting topics, you are responsible for the unofficial CTWC tournament recap. Last year we had the 2018 recap. It came out a week before CTWC 2019.
Yeah.
This year the recap is split into 3 parts, and the first part is coming out on November 25th, which is, at the time of the recording, it's tomorrow, but if when you listen this, it's already a week behind us. Is it a coincidence that you release both recaps a week before the newest CTWC?
It's not a coincidence if it's like you're a student in school and you have your master's thesis and the deadline for your master's thesis comes up. So the most of the time you end up working on that master's thesis is right before the deadline.
Yeah.
The tough thing, I think, and this is something I've learned about life in general. There was a post I read on blog Wait But Why about the Eisenhower matrix, which is how you stack your priorities in life. I know this is getting little off topic, but it relates to it. But basically, the idea of the Eisenhower matrix is it splits things into 4 categories of what you can be working on. Things are either not important or important.
Yeah.
And they're urgent or not urgent. So when you're spending time doing stuff that's not important and not urgent, that's just pointless stuff. You're procrastinating.
Yeah.
When you're spending time on urgent, important stuff, that's when you've procrastinated on it and you're finally getting it done. When you're working on important but not urgent stuff, that's when you really get productive in life.
Yeah.
Because you're finally doing things not on a deadline. So the tough thing about CTWC Recap is that it was important. Like I had to make it at some point.
Yeah.
But it also wasn't necessarily urgent because there wasn't necessarily a hard deadline for several months. I was like, all right, there's all these other videos I want to do throughout the year. And I want to get those done this week or this month. The CTWC recap doesn't have to come out this month. So that's the tough thing, is that if you're not disciplined in life and you have these like big, amazing projects in your mind that are going to take hundreds of hours of work, but don't have a specific deadline, you just have to commit yourself to working on them a little bit day by day, and that's how they get done. And that's unfortunately something I didn't really do. I tried. Like there's like little spurts throughout the year where I made a big effort to get the script done, and then I made a big effort to get some of the drawings done, and I made a big effort to film all the filmy parts. So there were several points throughout the year where I spent like a big chunk of time getting it done.
Yeah.
But then the time where I suddenly came up on like, all right, the master's thesis is due. It's time to get this done before the brackets start in October. I had the curveball thrown at me of, hey, Enhance wants you to make 4 videos about the super secret thing that's coming out.
Yeah.
Suddenly that became the priority. So I'm like, oh, shoot. So then that was meant to be my crunch time. And then that kind of got moved to November. So that's what I've been working on now. So I think that's something where like I really admire people who make huge, big projects happen that have no deadlines. That's how you get things done. I'm sure there was no deadline on you starting this podcast or putting this all together. I'm super glad you started doing it because now there's this awesome podcast out there.
And why is the 2019 recap in 3 parts?
Because I was realizing I wasn't going to be able to get it out in its entirety before the top 8. And felt like, all right, if I can't even get out some of this before the top 8, before CTWC 2020 is over, a lot of people have been asking me like when this is going to come out. It's taken a while. So like, all right, maybe I can just split it into 3 parts. The first huge chunk of it is completely done. Might as well just release that. And focus on finishing up the end.
Will it be released week after week or month after month?
I mean, I really want to finish it as soon as possible. So it's at the point where I'm no longer putting it off on a day-to-day basis. Like I'm working on it hours a day, every single day. So it'll get done as fast as I can get it done because I want to get this whole thing out before the end of the year. But I think it also,
amazing.
I think it also helps with that sense of urgency at the same time when it goes back to the Eisenhower matrix, like psychology stuff, which that matrix is named after Eisenhower because he came up with it, and he's one of the United States presidents and apparently he was a super, super, super productive guy. And that's how he got stuff done, by just filing it all away into those categories, and then always working on the important stuff that was not urgent when he had free time. By having it split into 3 parts, I'm no longer working on this behemoth of a video that might come out in a month or 2. I'm able to be like, all right, I can finish polishing up part 1 that's going to get done this week. Yeah. Just get that out now. And that's super motivating on an internal level.
Was it demotivating to, not to say you were forced to make a 2019 recap, but the 2018 recap was received very well. So you wanted to do a 2019 recap, but was it demotivating that it didn't work out the way you wanted it to be?
I think the hard part is, it's like a theme with everything I do. It's like having too much ambition and then having to like rein it in at some points. The initial thing with the 2018 video, a big part of why it took so long and I wasn't quite sure how to do it was I was so caught up in the moment of experiencing the CTWC that I shot almost no footage. Like pretty much every single photo or piece of B-roll I took is in that video.
Yeah.
I used every last scrap of what I had, which wasn't much. And at the end, I was like, shoot, this isn't maybe that compelling of a video if most of it is just me talking or just clips. Because I can show clips of like what happened in the events, but a lot of the stuff I wanted to talk about was stuff that happened off camera.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I've seen other videos where people have gone to conventions or animation YouTubers where they've just like drawn cartoons of everybody and just animated it.
Yeah.
And the problem was I didn't really know how to draw. And so when I was initially doing tests, the drawings were just not coming out well. I was initially doing with like a pencil and paper, and it was just atrocious. And I was like, I can't put this out. I don't want people to be completely insulted when I draw them. So I had to get from like 1 out of 5 stars in my drawings to like 2 out of 5 stars. I had to get to the like barely passable.
Yeah.
And then for 2019, I was like, all right, I want to up the level. I want to animate more stuff. I want to make more drawings. And then I made this huge list of all these drawings and animations I wanted to do with more motion. And then I started working on it, and I'm in the middle of like 15-second clip that takes me 4 hours to make animation. And I'm like, I cannot do this for an entire video. Animation is produced by big teams of people. It's a very, very tedious process.
Yeah.
It's a very tedious process just to draw all the assets, let alone actually try and do animation stuff. So maybe someday if I have an enormous budget or somebody has an enormous budget, it'll be cool to make like animations and stuff. Or maybe next year I'll just be a lot more disciplined and just actually film everything so I don't have to animate stuff.
Is a CTWC recap in the core different than a CTM recap?
Difference, I guess, with the CTWC recap is that I'm an active participant. In the CTM recap, it's like a condensed recap of the main goal. I wanted to make a CTM recap is somebody who maybe didn't have time to watch the entire 7-hour broadcast, they can watch a 10-minute video of what happened. And I think the goal with that has also been like for people who haven't watched the CTMs because they've been so long, by watching a highlight, it makes it exciting and makes you want to go back and watch the old ones or watch the next one live. Which I've noticed my family members, they tell me like they now started watching the CTMs live because of my videos, which has been cool. They'll like text me throughout them. Gives me something to talk about with them on those days. But yeah, so the CTM recap, that's the goal, to condense it down. The CTWC recap, the idea of it was to make a video about like, what's it like to go there? I mean, that's going to be different for everybody. Yeah. So like a lot of the stuff I talk about is stuff that's it's how it felt to me or somebody I talked to. And the other person could have a completely different video that's going to have completely different anecdotes.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm super happy that AMJ Productions made his video, because that's one of those topics where, like, when I was initially worried about GameScout videos that I would make where somebody else will make them and it would be like the same thing and then my video would be pointless.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case with my experience at this event kind of video, because I realized I try not to watch the AMJ production videos too much when I was scripting mine, just because I didn't want it to be the same. I wrote out how I would write the script, and then I went back and watched his video, and I was like, oh wow, okay, I wrote my script for this video like very different from him. Cool.
Yeah.
Because we had different stuff we were experiencing throughout those days. So I find that really cool, and I would love to see more people make videos about like my experience going to the European Championships or a qualifier event or stuff. Like, I would love to see those like tangible experiences and like what people felt like going to those events.
Yeah. Do you ever want to go to the European Championship?
I would love to go to the European Championship someday if I can save up for it, because I know the European guys, they have to save up a lot to come to Portland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to go to the European Championship. I mean, I love to go around the world. I mean, I think, if money's no object, obviously, because of course there's practical limits. Like, it sucks that this year is the year the pandemic happened, because Chris Bidwell had a really interesting project where he was going to go to every single event in the United States. He was going to go to every single qualifier, and he probably could have made some. Yeah, like if you were able to interview him about that for a podcast, maybe he'll do it in 2021. I would love to hear about his experience doing that.
I sent him my Paul cartridge, so he has my DM.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So yeah, have you watched CTEC this year?
I watched some of it. Unfortunately, it was a day where I was really busy. I saw little bits and pieces of it, and then I had a bit of a long chat with Hezuli about it, because he was telling me about all the amazing things that were happening. And I saw as the bracket was going through, I was like, whoa, all the usual people who make it to the finals or are like the big names, they're going down quick.
Yeah.
It's basically like the PAL version of CTWC 2020, where it's like a whole new cast of characters. And then as from what I can understand, somebody very surprising won.
Yeah, Wing.
I don't know too much about him, and I feel bad about that. It's so hard to keep up with everybody, but that's one of those things where I've been wanting to make like video about PAL Tetris and CTEC for a while. That's something where like I want to go back. I want to finally watch the whole CTEC, really dive into who some of these players were that really emerged, and dive into the PAL community.
Yeah. Is that important to let people know that there is a PAL version along with the NTSC version?
Yeah. Because I get a sense from at least some of the people who organize like the online PAL events that there's a lot of the huge NTSC cards don't even know it exists. PAL Tetris, when I watch it, it's exciting in a very different way. Like the ways you can be aggressive are much higher because you have that faster DAS on level 18. There's the cool aspect where hyper tappers don't have this massive advantage over DAS players. So pretty much like the top players are all on an the top players are all on an even playing field. And you have like this kill screen that's not quite the kill screen that people can still play on, and that DAS players have a hope of going for. And you get these really crazy aggressive setups on level 18, and it's kind of pedal to the metal all the time.
Yeah.
All the aggression is just slightly differently calibrated from NTSC, NES Tetris, and it creates this whole new different flavor of the competition. I think, like at the very beginning of PAL Tetris, when Yanni came over and to the CTWC for the first time, he didn't know there was a difference. So I think it goes right back to the very beginning of, it can be a confusing topic on the surface because the games on the surface look exactly the same. It's only when
True.
you know that there's a difference.
Have you ever played Paul Tetris?
I have never played Pal Tetris, so that's something that I would love to be able to do without downloading something illegal.
Yeah.
Because then I can't make a video about that. But yeah, that's on my list. One of these days to get a PAL cartridge and console and figure out how to get a TV and yeah, like experience it.
It's the biggest concern, yeah, getting a PAL TV in the US.
Yeah, because I know it's a pain in the butt for you guys in Europe to get the NTSC stuff. And,
well, it was for me, the most difficult part was to get the NES from the US and the cartridge from the US, because most modern CRT TVs are both PAL and NTSC compatible. So that wasn't the most difficult part. The most difficult part was paying a lot of money to import a very old game console from the US all the way to the Netherlands.
Yeah, so those are sort of questions that like I don't fully know the answer yet. So like, how do I get a PAL CRT? I don't even know the answer to that. So that's something that I have to research. First
Dare
of all,
to ask.
Yeah, yes, that is on my bucket list because yeah, one of these days, when the pandemic's over, I'd love to come out to the CTEC and experience that, and also be able to at least try to qualify. I will not get my hopes up to make any sort of noise in that tournament, but it'd be fun to take part.
Definitely. Hey, on December the 6th, the main event for CTWC will be happening. 8 players who won their respective qualifying brackets will battle it out to become the Classic Tetris World Champion of 2020. Without predicting anything, what can we expect this Sunday?
What can we expect this Sunday? Oh my gosh. Well, I think we're going to see somebody in the finals that's never been there before. Only 2 players in the bracket have even been in the CTWC before. I think this year is really representative of all the people who got inspired from the Joseph wave, where there's a moment in AMJ Productions CTWC Experience video where he says, watching Joseph, somebody who was just a year older than me, it really inspired me and changed my personality. And I think that's kind of what the Joseph year did, where it made it look accessible. Like, this isn't a game that people who are in their 30s or 40s who've been playing this since they were a kid, it's not just them who can be good at this game. Somebody who's young, somebody who hasn't been playing for very long can be good too.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to get to see a lot of new personalities become stars. Like 2 players that I can think of immediately that at least I've known in the community for a while, but I never really knew their faces or their personalities a whole lot until recently, were like Dog and Cheesefish. They were complete secrets.
And they meet in the first round.
They meet in the first round. It's crazy. Dog, finally vanquishing his demons of always doing really, really well in individual games in the CTM, but just never getting to the finals or winning the darn thing.
Yeah.
Even though he's so talented. Finally vanquishing his nemesis Corion and pulling out clutch performance of his life, finally in the biggest tournament he's ever played in. And then Cheesefish, who similarly had the same issues in CTMs, where he struggled to make it super far, had some issues even qualifying for the CTWC. And then he pulls out the performance of his life in the biggest tournament he's played in.
Yeah,
which I find that so cool. I think they also both of them bring a really unique personality to the scene. They're both super active and helpful in the Discord servers. They're both really active members of the community, and I think it's really exciting to see beyond just the isolated Discord communities, now a larger YouTube audience getting to know who they are.
Yeah. I like the story about Nenu. and how he got into the main event, because he hadn't had a NES. What was it, 4 or 5 months ago?
Yes.
So I believe Jeff Moore, the Boom Tetris for Jeff, bought a NES and shipped it all the way to Indonesia.
Yes. And then there was one other person who helped in some sort of the process along the way.
Xarxos, I believe.
Yes, I think that's correct. And they deserve credit too, from what I've been told. But yeah, I find that super cool. Basically, it's the idea of like, if there's anybody who's like super talented and didn't have the gear to get in, it would be someone like Nenu. And like Nenu deserves to be in that tournament for his skill.
Yeah.
So I find that cool that like the community made it happen. People in the community were willing to step up and do that. And there's other people who have done that quite silently for others. Like Chris Bidwell, he doesn't advertise it too much, but he's sent out NESs to tons of people. He sent one out to me. I was going to pay him for it, but then he refused payment for me. He's just like, I want you to have this.
Cool.
And from what I understand, he's done that for several people in the community.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Which first round matchup are you most looking forward to see?
Probably Dog versus Cheesefish.
Yeah.
But I mean, all of those matchups are going to be great.
Yeah.
I really can't think of any combination of those top 8 that I wouldn't love to see in the finals. I think that's one of the tough things about Tetris is that like nobody I really root against. I kind of want to root for everybody, which it's disappointing in that most of those people won't make it to the end, but it's exciting in that like basically no matter what the outcome, I'll be happy for somebody.
And so will we have a new world champion this year?
We have a new world champion. I think there's a very good chance. I mean, Joseph is amazing. It wouldn't surprise me if he won it again, but it also wouldn't surprise me if somebody else took it. I think what we saw in like that Dog versus Corian game, where Corian got back-to-back 1.1s, and then Dog still beat him by like 2,800 points or something like that in both those games.
Yeah.
It's like Corian played about as good as you possibly can. Like he even said on Twitter, like he's like, I'm happy this year. Like I did the best I could. I feel like those games can happen to any of the top players, even Joseph. Like Joseph could pull out a 1.1, but so does his opponent.
Yeah, it will be a very high quality tournament on December the 6th. But we had last weekend, we had the Silver Bracket Tournament, a tournament held for people who ended up on place 65 to 96 in the qualifying. What do you think of the Silver Bracket Tournament?
It was really cool because it was again an opportunity to see just a lot more of the CTWC and faces that maybe didn't make it in the main bracket this year. Some of the veterans got to play, like Trey, Buko, Joey, and many others, but also a lot of the faces of CTM and the Discord communities that I've seen over the years just be super awesome members of the community. And like Noel making it all the way to the finals. Noel's awesome. He always gets so hyped for all his matches. He really puts his heart out on the field. There was one crazy dig he got out of in one of the games where like he just was like fist pumped and just went crazy, and it caused him to miss drop on the Cheez. But I just love that emotion from him. I'm so glad he made the finals, even if he didn't win against Batfoy. I mean, how can anyone win against him?
But who impressed you the most alongside Noel?
It's a tough one because there's some players I had never seen before that impressed me a whole lot with their perseverance. There was one matchup, I forget who the heck those people were. I feel terrible that I'm not remembering their names, but it was this one game where it was like both the scores were like high 600,000s, low 700,000s into the kill screen. But basically both players spent their entire time on level 19 digging and getting out of rough boards.
Yeah.
Like the perseverance on both of them was incredible. And they just kept going back and forth. They were like barely a Tetris or two apart the entire time. I was like, this is some real like high level competitive Tetris. It's not max outs. It's just gritty survival and great tournament play.
But you don't need to have max outs to make an excited Tetris match.
Exactly, yeah. And that's something I also learned too with making the CTM recaps. There was one month where there were very few high profile max out finishes. I still think it ended up being super exciting.
Yeah. As long as the scores are relatively close, you have an
both
exciting
players
matchup.
are pushing each other.
Yeah. During the CTWC season, we saw much more classic Tetris content. Not only did we saw a lot of high-profile matches, but we also saw a lot of different non-game playing content. March, Kingsman, along with the rest of the Kingsman Tetris friendly crew, organized a charity stream for UNICEF. They raised over $600. Multiple world records were broken. Eric broke twice the highest level achieved with 37 and 38. There was an announcement for the new Classic Tetris documentary. The Tetris Effect Connected game was released. A lot happened during day one of qualifying, which seems like it was a year ago, but only 2 months ago. How did you experience this whole CTWC season?
It's a struggle even keeping up with everything. that's where it's sucked that like this was the time that I ended up trying to crunch out this CTWC 2019 video and series, because it's like there's so much going on.
Yeah.
But
had you had time to watch any?
I had time to watch some of it. So again, I watched like pieces of the CTEC when it was happening. I watched a good chunk of the silver bracket when it was happening. I tried to participate in stuff when I could. Yeah, it's a whirlwind, and I mean it's great that there's too much out there for me to keep up with. That's the inverse of what it used to be several years ago when Tetris was only a once a year thing on the weekend.
And it grew in like 3 years from being a once a year to once a day, twice a day. You name it. It's so much. Will you be playing more competition matches in the near future?
That's something I went back and forth on, because I was like, maybe it's maybe I just need to focus on content. But then I keep getting dragged back into it. Like I got invited on by Vince and then Kingsman for 2 matches, one versus AMJ Productions, the other one versus Anna D, and those were so much fun. So although I'm not quite sure when I'll be in a CTM again, or if I'll be in a CTL at some point, or what I'll enter, I'm not going to stop competing altogether. I also wasn't sure if I'd completely stop playing as well after I got 700K, where I kind of felt like, all right, I finally beat my goal. Should I just call it there? I'm satisfied.
Why did you want it to stop?
Because I wasn't sure, honestly, if I could ever max out. I was like, do I want to shoot for a goal I'm not sure I could actually get? And then somehow, like over the past couple of weeks, I suddenly started being able to play level 19. And then like 2 days ago, I got 500,000 off a 19 start. And I'm like, gosh darn it. I could probably max out someday if I really tried, couldn't I? I'm going to have to go for this.
But is it because you're a well-known person within the community? Is the pressure higher, or do you give yourself more pressure because you're well-known to achieve that max out, or to achieve a higher score than your personal best right now?
I think an aspect of it is it always helps in making content about community you're involved in if you actually like participate and do the stuff. Like competing in an event, there's a certain psychological aspect to it that you can't prepare for. Like I've gotten so nervous in big matchups where there's been so many people watching, and so that's caused me to make some stupid errors that I wouldn't make if I was just casually playing at home. And that's something that some people may have to keep in mind when they're watching like CTWC matches or something, remembering that like these are people playing in for many people, it's the biggest audience they've ever played in front of by far in their entire lives. And so if they make a really stupid move sometimes, well, maybe give them a little bit of slack because they might have just been caught up in the heat of the moment.
Yeah. And my final question to you is, what will the future look like for you?
I don't know. It's hard. Like, 2 years ago, I was not expecting that the channel that I would be spending most of my time on would be about competitive Tetris. I would have had no idea that there would even be so much material to sustain such a channel.
Yeah.
But here I am, and here's the community. Like, the community's fantastic. It's growing exponentially, and I'm glad just to be a part of it and just to be a fan about a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff. Like, there's no way I could possibly make videos or cover everything or keep up with everything, but I can still enjoy stuff as a fan, and that's how I
Yeah.
started out. So uh, that's what I'm most looking forward to, is seeing how the scene continues to play out over the next couple years. No matter what I'm doing personally, I'll at least get to follow it.
Is that the secret of being a game scout? Just being a fan who happens to make content about classic Tetris?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain level of authenticity you can get in a video if you actually like enjoy what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's where, like, that's that's the core of, I think, what I'm trying to do with a GameScout, where it's like, I didn't initially make the channel like because, oh, this was some brand new topic that I thought I could get views off of. I wasn't sure how many views I would get on such a channel in the first place, or how much of an interest there would be. It was because I was a super big fan for a long time.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, this would be really cool to make a video explaining stuff and like putting into context stuff that I had learned.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to me, and I thought it would be cool to other people.
David, a Game Scout, I thank you very much for your time and thank you for doing this.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Thank you so much. This has been a long one.
I will see you the next time.
All right, thanks so much.
And with that all being said, this will be the end of the Peace Dependency Podcast. Thank you all for listening, and make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to join the Kingsman Tetris Friendly's Discord server and follow me on the socials at SirMacer. For now, have a great Tetris month, and I will see you all in January of 2021. Bye!